Huge news in Clare with the development that Colm Galvin has announced he won't be playing for Clare this season. Just bring his tweet up on screen here. So he says, after talking about a current groin injury I have, I'm going to let it heal and rejoin the Clare panel in January. I will still be helping with stats, etc. for those of you asking. Signed Colm. So that's Colm Galvin, who has been an excellent player for Clare over the years. He obviously took one season there off there at one point. He didn't play any of the league. He missed Clonlara games against Newmarket and Fergus, and also against Broadford. So to some degree this has been coming. We've heard whispers that he mightn't be available this year. But that is a colossal blow. I mean, we already saw John Conlon out with the ACL from earlier in the year. Now, we're not 100% sure how he's getting on with that. We've seen lads come back after 5 months. But what a blow that is for Clare.
Massive loss. Yeah, he's the one that makes Clare tick. In my view, you think of the dynamic duo probably of him and Tony Kelly. One can't do it without the other, and I don't think Tony Kelly is near as influential without Colm Galvin. He's brilliant on the ball. He rarely gives the ball away. There's rarely a stray pass. It's always measured. There's always a focus to it, and he's always able to find Kelly and set him up and maybe do some of the donkey work, create a bit of space for him. So yeah, no, I think it's a monster loss. Like, you look at the years when they've gone really well. 13 when they won the All-Ireland, he was an All-Star, obviously, he was brilliant. And 18 when they got to the All-Ireland semi-final and a replay against Galway, he was brilliant both in the midfield role and both in the sweeper role as well when they were under pressure. And I just think he's a really good thinker at the day of a game. He's really good at thinking probably and solving kind of problems for them. And it's a big option gone away from them. The only thing I will say on it though is that I think they've been preparing for it by the fact that David McInerney and Tony Kelly have been playing midfield together throughout the year. Say Brian Lohan probably knew that he was in a bit of bother with it, maybe realised he had to start looking at other options. So he does have a pretty dynamic midfield there, but it's a massive option gone away from him. It's several options taken away from him, really.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you'd like to have him as a ball player at the base midfield, have David McInerney breaking lads up and bursting through with the ball, and then Tony Kelly be a little bit further up the field getting 4 or 5 points a game. I think you can't rule out how big this loss is for them, especially if John Conlon's not also playing as well. You mentioned 2018 there, that had that run to the All-Ireland semi-final replay. Those were two of the key men. You're taking two of the key men out of that. What else is there for Clare in terms of setting the tone? Yeah, they have a few other good players, but they were always lacking one or two to go to that next level. Now you're taking out one or two of the very best, and I can't see anything but a fairly comfortable win for Limerick in the Munster quarter-final, which also doubles up as a league final.
I find it very hard, Shane, to see how they'd win anything this year. Been honest with you, they have a new manager coming in. Brian Lohan's going to have to bed in all his new ideas and things like that. And you're taking away, as you said to me, like you're taking away one of their top 3 players. I just don't see how they could win anything without him. Being honest with you, he's just too much of a vital cog for them. The only thing I will say, from his point of view and from Brian Lohan's point of view, it's the smart thing to do. It's definitely the smart long-term option for him. He could try and soldier on this year in probably relatively heavy pitches with little probably prehab done and not enough training done, and he'd probably be writing off 2021 then realistically. So he's going to give himself the 3 or 4 months. He's obviously in regular contact with Brian, and it looks like he'll undergo a surgery or something, do something to have himself right, but he'll be right for next year. He won't be starting next year 2 steps back or with an injury. He should be starting ready to go next year. So I do think long term it's a smart move, particularly like he was under 21 in 2013, so he's 28, 29. He'd still have 3 or 4 at least good years of inter-county hurling left. But if he were to throw in 6 weeks to 2 months of basically doing damage to his body, you could possibly take a year or 2 off his career. So while it's a colossal loss to Clare, I think it is a smart move from both him and Brian Lohan, to be honest with you, long term.
Yeah, and it's probably a very un-GEA like thing to tell a player take off the rest of the season.
Yeah.
It's normally like just flog yourself to death, and then eventually when you're no used to us anymore, we'll just throw you up on the scrap heap. So whether that's his decision, Brian Lohan's, or jointly, it seems like it probably would be the right decision. And realistically, even if he did play through the pain barrier, he's probably not going to be able to give them the version of Colm Galvin that we know he can be this year. So it probably makes more sense. Yeah, it really, like, I think this year is going to end up being a bit of a free hit for Brian Lohan because of the way things have panned out. He's got the worst possible draw in the entirety of the championship. Maybe Laois's is up there as well, but he's got to play Limerick, probably one of the favourites for the All-Ireland and the previous year's champions, Tipperary, the current champions, then get to a final year against Cork or Waterford, and from there, like, it's really, really tough. So from Brian Lohan being down two of his best players and having the worst possible draw, I don't think anyone necessarily in Clare is going to criticise him. He's also got them to a league final.
Yeah, no, that's why I think it's probably a smart move from Lohan's point of view and from Galvin's point of view. As I said, this year is, there's probably going to be an asterisk beside this year. Everything's going to be different this year. At least there's the potential that when they start out in 2021, be it the first league game in February or March or whenever it is, that they should have one of their best players in tow. And he won't be having a miserable winter where he's injured and crocked and been able to half train and maybe come on in games and things like that, and he's just going to be frustrated. He'll probably get browned off for hurling. He's basically getting a gap of a year out of inter-county hurling now, which should leave him re-energised for 2021. So yeah, it's the most un-GA like thing to do is to think anyway long term, but it looks like they have here, and they could bear the fruits of it, but they're definitely going to struggle in 2020 without him.
Yeah, so best of luck to Colm Galvin, and any comments on him and Clare for the year ahead, let us know.